I'm Michael Coyne, sales executive here at Naviant, and I am joined this morning by Andrew McCready from Wisconsin Physician Services. Why don't we start, Andrew, specifically? I think we want to talk about WPS, kind of your focus on outsourced mailroom and inbound mail processing, as well as exciting outsourced mailroom service that we've developed alongside with WPS that you're providing through the data logistics arm of your business. So, Andrew, maybe to start, why don't you just a little bit of an introduction and tell us some more about specifically WPS Data Logistics?
Yeah, awesome, Michael. Thank you so much again for having us. And Naviant's been a great partner of ours, so we're happy to be here. As you mentioned, I'm Andrew McCready. I'm Vice President of Operations for our WPS Data Logistics branch. It's a division of WPS Health Solutions. We've been around for over 75 years, primarily as a claims processor for the government, and we also operate our own health insurance line in several states around the country. But specifically, again, back to data logistics, it's a portion of our company that focuses on three main pieces of the work. The first being inbound document processing, data processing and exchange, and outbound print and mail services. So today our conversation is going to focus primarily on the inbound document processing, which encompasses for us at a high level PO box management, full mailroom prep services, scanning, OCR services, all the way through secure document destruction.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great overview. Appreciate that. And I think this relates well. A big struggle that we often do hear from organizations is that they have teams that are burdened by working on some of the mundane or repetitive tasks that ultimately are adding very little value to their business, or more importantly, their customer relationships. And a big factor of that comes from having to perform these manual processes in the mailroom, receiving mail, opening and sorting, scanning and indexing. So not only is that taking up valuable time, but it also is opening up the door to things like human error, for example. So ultimately, that behind the scenes work does strongly correlate to the ultimate customer experience. So that being said, I have been out to see the mailroom operations at WPS. I would say that this is something that you have basically perfected. Can you tell us just a little more about your process and what makes WPS so good at providing this type of service?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for the compliment there. That's very nice. And, I think about this like hiring a professional painter to paint your house. Of course, you could do it yourself, but when you have a professional do it, it looks a little better and it goes about 3 times as fast in my personal experience. But WPS has been doing this work, as I mentioned, for 75 years, and we're continually refining and evolving that process. To give you an idea of scale, last year we brought in about 20 million pages of inbound mail through our mailroom. In addition, about 1 million pages coming over via fax. And, that was mail that we opened, prepped, scanned, converted, OCR'd using, our intelligent capture. It's really a process that's been refined over the years. But given that scale, it really allows us to leverage, best-in-class partners, facilities, equipment, and of course, software to help support that. But ultimately, what I think of when we're looking at this is, what is our accuracy rate? And I think this is something that customers and everyone needs to be thinking about. If you're not tracking that accuracy rate and you don't know what's happening downstream, if your accuracy rate 60% and you're passing that work downstream, you're having a ton of manual rework that's happening somewhere in your process, and it's just not efficient. So that's a number that we're constantly focusing on at WPS is how can we get that to 100%? So we're able to deliver that data downstream to create a claim, policy, data file, whatever we're looking to get out of it, we try to do that one time and move it into our systems as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'd echo, that is definitely a crucial component to increasing efficiency is be sure before we send things downstream, we have the accurate data that we need to ultimately make the business decisions down there. So, as we've talked about, WPS does, this inbound processing on your own documents, but outside of this, it is a service that you're providing to third-party organizations. So maybe tell us a little bit, Andrew, just about, maybe why organizations are considering outsourcing their mailroom and what they should expect when engaging in that type of work with WPS.
Yeah, I think, at the initial steps of an engagement, we're going to ask some high level questions just to get an idea of, what type of data we're ingesting, what are the security requirements around it, what the volume is, key SLAs that need to be met. We want to just get a high level picture of what we're going to be working with so we can start collaborating with your team directly, on a comprehensive solution, and again leverage that experience and knowledge that our teams have. I mean, we have over 200 people in our organization that touch this work in one way or another. So there's a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge that's coming out of that group that we want to leverage and work with our customers to improve their process. But once we have a customer on board, we know that this can be a challenging time. Everyone's busy, and we want to make this as efficient as possible once we have that engagement moving to the next level. So we have a 4-step process. The first step being discovery. This typically lasts, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity and the engagement. But during this process, we're really going to get into a deep dive, identifying every document type, every field that needs to be captured. What level of accuracy or confidence are we looking for on each capture? Once we have that, we're going to go back to our team, probably 4 to 8 weeks generally on a solution build out, depending on the complexity. We'll come back to the customer for customer testing and acceptance. This is where we really want to make sure we've captured all the requirements and exceeded expectations. And then obviously we go live. And at that point, our customers are going to continue to benefit from enhancements and support. As I mentioned, we're constantly evolving this with new technology, new equipment, and new processes. So that's kind of a high level overview of the process there, Michael.
Yeah, and one of the items you talked a little bit about there in that process is working with organizations to understand requirements. And what I'm thinking about is a scenario maybe where I have sensitive data or strict security requirements around the documents and data that we're processing. Can you talk a little bit about just maybe how I know WPS is properly protecting that information and what you do with it once it's processed?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is something a day doesn't go by when we're not talking about security. I think, like everyone in the industry right now, data security is just is so critical and so important. But as part of that onboarding process, our team's going to go with you in thorough detail what type of data we're capturing, what are the security requirements around it, whether it's HIPAA, SOC 2, whatever the security requirements are, we're going to capture that probably as one of the first things and make sure we're designing and exceeding that. But once we have the actual data and documents from the customer, there are going to be 2 paths. So the first is going to be the documents. So once we've processed the documents, scanned them, ingested them, we're going to store those in our secure warehouse. Typically, we store them for about 30 days, and then we'll send them off for secure destruction once we've guaranteed that we've gotten a clean image and all the data off of it. The second is going to be the actual data. Once we've confirmed handoff to the customer and validated that transaction, we'll agree to a time and when we'll destroy that. And then the data resides with the customer and we no longer hold on to it. But in all cases, we treat all of our data, with the highest level of security standards and protect all data equally.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for the answer there around the specific security component of this. I guess my next question, Andrew, is as I just keep the wheels turning, is if I'm an organization, what are maybe some of the indicators that I might be a good candidate for an outsourced mailroom? Is it, certain volume or maybe common challenges that are good indicators? What have you seen?
Yeah, so typically, this is a great question. I think we're seeing 3 trends right now. The first being cost or space reduction. A lot of people right now with the increase in hybrid work are reducing office space. And unfortunately, a lot of times this function sits in the basement of a building and has been forgotten about for years. So we're getting a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, we're looking at moving this. That's a reasonable time to look at outsourcing. But in addition, as I mentioned before, if you don't have significant volume in this space, it can be hard to keep up with changes in expense and in technology, staffing, equipment. So that's the first thing. The second one, I would go back to the low accuracy rate. If people are attuned to what their accuracy rate is and how many touches they're having within their organization, that would be another reason. over 20 million documents last year. Our accuracy rate was audited at over 99.5% accurate over all the fields that were touched, which is, in my opinion, is pretty good. As I mentioned, we're always focusing on getting to that 100% number. And the third thing I would say is probably the need for people to focus on their core business. The mailroom function it's a unique, intricate business, and not everyone's an expert in it. And I think it's okay to admit that. And we like to think we've perfected it, and we're happy to help customers, that have challenges in this space.
And those are definitely, Andrew, I think goals too that align with what we hear very frequently with talking with organizations that are looking for innovative ways to maybe get back to your point, focusing on the core business activities that they have driving their business. So
Sure.
I think we could probably get into a ton more detail today, but that's been a strong overview of kind of what this offering is all about. And again, it gets us back to that core idea of our session today about finding strategic ways to eliminate some of those burdensome tasks like mailroom processing, so that we can get hyper-focused on the value-added activities. So if you're interested in learning more about specifically this offering with WPS, feel free to visit their website at WPSDataLogistics.com, but also feel free to reach out to myself, Andrew, or your Naviant account rep to learn a little bit more about specifically this offering, and possibly even set up a tour to go see their operations for yourself. And with that, I just want to give one more thank you to Andrew. We really do appreciate you taking the time to be here to share your story. And everybody else, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.